Thank you, Skip. I guess he blew my cover that I am a native of Michigan, but someone called me out at lunch today and said, "You're not from Arkansas, are you?" And I said, "How did you know?" But I do have to say, people in the Midwest, everyone says people are so nice in the Midwest, but everyone here has really stepped up the Southern hospitality. So it's been a pleasure to be in Arkansas. This is my first time. And this is actually our PEW's second time at being at the Clinton School. Skip has hosted us 2 years in a row. But before I get into introducing our real guest speakers here tonight, let me just tell you a little bit about why we're here. I work with an organization called the PEW Charitable Trust in Washington, D.C., and we have a national program aimed at passing federal clean energy policies. And we have clean energy policies that are aimed at improving the economy, national security, and the environment, of course. And in our efforts, we look to kind of engage Americans and educate our policymakers about why we need these clean energy policies. And in doing so, we realized about 2 years ago kind of a real gap in national leaders talking about why we need clean energy policies. So we looked around and we said, here is a former senator, Senator John Warner of Virginia, who dedicated 30 years of his life to in the Senate and really spearheaded efforts aimed at protecting our national security and the environment. And we said, why don't you come work with us and go around the country and talk to Americans just like you and about why we need energy policy for our national security. And with him, we got on the road. We went to 16 states. We came to Arkansas, I think, a year ago today. And he probably stood in this room and talked to some folks here. And we, like I said, 16 states, and we really saw success in connecting his voice, talking about national security, and highlighting what the Department of Defense is doing in absence of national policies. In fact, actually, the Army today announced that they are making 8 bases around the country that are going to be net zero, which is a real forward-looking thing that they're doing. And the Navy has really taken the lead on kind of reducing their energy costs and their carbon output. So at the same time, we kind of looked around and said, we need another kind of national leader that can talk about the opportunity of addressing our energy problem and what it can do for the economy and jobs. So again, we looked around for a national leader that could do this, and we found one. Governor Jennifer Granholm, who's here today, and I'm proud to say, as a native of Michigan, was a 2-term governor from Michigan, and was the former head of the Midwestern Governors Association. She has joined our team in a bipartisan effort to pass clean energy policies that help our environment, that help the economy, that bring jobs and American competitiveness to our economy. She comes to us with deep familiarity with the challenges of a state that has faced economic challenges. And one of the things that she did as governor was dedicate time to the clean energy policies. And she learned, and we'll talk to you today about, she knows that policy matters. She saw the results of impacting clean energy policies and what it did to the economy and jobs. She has real successes as a result of being governor. She attracted $9 billion in investments, 47 companies, I believe, and growing, and brought 89,000 new jobs to the state of Michigan. Now that is a real success story. And she, as you will learn very quickly, is not afraid to ask Americans and call upon public policymakers to set goals and step up to the plate when it comes to clean energy. And we could not be happier to have her leading this effort. We are doing a national tour around the country, with our first stop being here today in Little Rock, Arkansas. You might ask why we decided to come to Little Rock first. And the reason is because of the great weather, of course. We identified a series of states that we see as having a real growth opportunity, real clean energy opportunity, job opportunity, and that have real leadership. which of course Arkansas has in your governor, Governor Beebe, who's here today. As you all know, he has been a steward of the environment and the economy. Since he took office in 2007, he's really been a leader in this sector. He's brought 27,000 jobs to the state, 17,000 just in clean energy jobs. He has created a commission on global warming, and he has led efforts to make Arkansas a wind turbine manufacturing hub. And just, I believe, last month he was speaking at the Wind Association conference, confirming and kind of stating his commitment to the power of clean energy. And so it is with great honor that I introduce Governor Beebe. Governor?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's my honor to be able to introduce Jennifer. And I call her Jennifer because she and I served together, and she is a wonderful person, and you're going to get an opportunity to see that here in just a minute as you understand the depth of her knowledge and her persuasiveness and ability to be able to carry a message. But before I do that, I want to make a couple of other points, one of which is going to be so circuitous that I better tell you that it's circuitous on the front end so you don't think I've just lost my mind up here. Those that have been listening to me for a long time have understood that I have linked clean energy, renewable energy, and domestic energy together for a lot of reasons. They are absolutely not mutually exclusive. They are mutually compatible. And they do bring those three things, that tripod that I call the goals of job creation, protecting our planet for ourselves and for posterity, and national security. They bring those things together. Most of the people in this room, there's a couple of you that I don't think fit this category, and I'm not even going to look directly at you right now because you're friends of mine anyway, but most of the people in this room are here and are committed for the salutary reasons of protecting our planet, for the obligation you feel for yourselves and for your children and for your grandchildren, and for ensuring that we pass on to generations to come a place to live and to work with the pristine nature, as pristine as we can get it back to or as we can keep it. And so the environmental aspect of that three-legged stool is something that you all champion very eloquently. And I needn't go into all that with you. That's why you're already here. That's preaching, as Clinton says, preaching to the saved. I say preaching to the choir. That's not necessarily the same thing. But I want to talk about an event that occurred that illustrates how you make people believe that don't share your passion for the environment. And trust me, it's important for you to make them believe that, because you don't change public policy without understanding the policymakers and how you have to address them. Years and years ago, when I was a young senator, a young lady that was an advocate for single mothers, single parents, but primarily single mothers, came to see me back in the dark ages about subsidized daycare. Now, you wonder about that today because we see subsidized daycare proliferated to the point that you all take it for granted now, just like you take electric lights. But in the old days, subsidized daycare was non-existent in Arkansas. And she wanted $400,000. In today's world, that's not a lot. And even in today's tight budget, $400,000 doesn't raise a lot of eyebrows in a state budget request. But she wanted $400,000 to initiate subsidized daycare so that she could get those single mothers either going back to school to get job skills or to start into entry-level work and work their way up, because a mother, first and foremost, is going to take care of that child. And if they don't have an alternative to take care of that child, they don't do anything else. They don't have the freedom or the option to go back to school or the freedom or the option to go enter the workforce. It's also elementary, right? So to help mothers We need to subsidize daycare and get some of these folks back in as tax-paying citizens. Met a stone wall. Nobody in the legislature wanted to do it, didn't get anywhere, couldn't get off of first base. And I finally told the Joint Budget Committee, for every dime you spend on this, statistics tell us we're going to get $4 back. The whole atmosphere changed. It was all about the money. It was all about the money. So in your zeal to tell people that they have an obligation to protect our planet and to take care of our kids, do not forget to make that economic argument you just heard made and that Jennifer is so familiar with, that if you don't want to do it for those reasons, think about the jobs we're going to create, the tax base that's going to be broadened, the ability to be able to lower taxes as more people work and make more money, because we can actually broaden the tax base and create a better economy and better jobs for our people. Those of you that aren't making the jobs argument need to do so. But that's not even the argument that's today getting most folks' attention. It's the national security argument. All you've got to do is look at what's going on in the gasoline prices today. Look at what's going on right now in America. You know, we've got a short memory in this country. We forget. And we're going to do all sorts of neat things, and then things go back the other way, and we immediately forget with our short memory, and we just revert back to our old ways. We've got to stop that. This is a national security issue, and I'll give you one quick point, and then I'm going to shut up and talk about Jennifer. We were this close to having an OPEC on natural gas. And I know natural gas is not y'all's deal, but I'm going to make a point here. We were this close to having an OPEC on natural gas. Prior to technology on shale production, we had a 20 to 25 year reserve in this country on natural gas. And only two places in the world had an abundance and a long-term supply of natural gas: Iran and Russia. Not Soviet Union, Russia. They were already in discussions about how to establish what the prices were going to be on natural gas for all the industrialized countries of the world to be able to import natural gas. You think we got problems with oil, with OPEC? Just think what would have happened if Iran and Russia, who incidentally aren't on our Christmas card list, had decided that they had the market cornered on natural gas. What's all this got to do with anything? Here's what it's got to do with. Let's grow our own fuel. We can make gasoline out of cellulose, and it's a lot better for the environment. It creates thousands of jobs, and ultimately it will rid us of our dependence on foreign oil. Let's make electricity out of solar panels. We've got a company right now, startup company in Northwest Arkansas, with nanotechnology that's making great strides in bringing the cost of solar power down. We don't need to have coal all the time. We can do it with solar. And you know how I feel about wind. I mean, we have become the hub for manufacturing in this country. We've created we have four foreign investments right now in manufacturing for turbines or for nacelles or for blades for wind component manufacturing for component parts for the wind energy industry. All of this makes sense for all three of those reasons. It's good for the environment, it's good for the economy, and it's good for our national security. And it's about time somebody with the stature of a Jennifer Granholm is going around this country trying to educate folks. But she's also going to be preaching to this choir here. Y'all got to go help. You got to take what she says today and evangelize in the old Southern way. You got to go talk to the people who don't want to listen. You got to go to invest their minds in the idea. And whatever trips their stress meters, if they don't want to do it for the right reasons, do it for the money. It works. And Jennifer is an unbelievable ambassador for that. I had the pleasure to know her. She was a veteran, although she was much younger than the rest of us, a veteran governor when I was sworn in as governor, and I first got to know her in conjunction with activities with the National Governors Association. No governor probably had it as hard in her last couple years as Jennifer Granholm did, because Michigan was the hardest hit state in this recession, primarily because of the automotive industry. But nobody's come out of it any quicker. Have y'all seen those Chrysler commercials? I mean, they're reinventing Detroit. It's pretty neat. And she has weathered that storm, and she helped guide and set the pathway for Michigan to come out of the recession. And Michigan, as I said, was the hardest hit area of our country. It takes courage, it takes leadership, it takes vision to be able to do that. She has all of those qualities. I'm so grateful that she chose Little Rock as not only a place to come, but as her first place to come. I hope you'll make her feel so welcome that she'll want to come back often. I hope you'll show her the kind of Southern hospitality that you are noted for. And I hope you will take the message that she brings to you and spread it as far and wide as you can, because it's important for all of us to be singing from the same songbook. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you the former governor of Michigan, my friend, Jennifer Granholm.
Thank you very much. I want to say, preach it, don't you? I mean, what he said, I feel like you have, you've been such a great example here, which is one of the reasons why that we chose to come to Arkansas, because the governor obviously has gone out to attract wind energy businesses, and I know you're a big believer in biomass and waste to energy, waste to fuel, so thanks for your leadership. Thanks for giving an example for the country to look at, to say, yeah, we can create jobs in America, and it's starting right here in Arkansas, so appreciate it. And by the way, which sports team do you love?
Tigers.
Tigers. Love that. Love that.
Not LSU, Detroit.
Right, Detroit Tigers. Now, Governor Beebe's got to leave, and I really appreciate you coming out to say hello. I know everybody appreciates, so let's give him a big round of applause. Great. Well, thank you all for coming out tonight, and I know that I'm supposed to be preaching to the choir, to the saved, but what I really hope I'm doing is going to be giving you some information that you can help to share in maybe a way that you haven't done it before, if you are going to be an evangelist. If I'm not preaching to the choir, and you're one of the sinners, we want you to come across to be a true believer. But I'm so pleased to be able to help preach in conjunction with the Pew Charitable Trusts, because as Laura Lightbody said, Pew has been really focused on advocating for a national energy policy. Because what we want to do is to create a national market for clean energy and therefore the jobs that are created. We call this campaign Clean Power, Good Jobs, Energy Independence. It's pretty basic. And as Laura said, have the privilege of leading this in a bipartisan way with Senator John Warner from Virginia, former Senator John Warner, who also has the distinction of having been married to Elizabeth Taylor. Yes, so he's got his own cachet, in addition to having been head of the Navy and head of the Armed Services Committee in the Senate. So we're lucky to be working together. And so let me just start off by asking you, and I know there's probably, I hope, some students who are here as well, but I want to ask you, if you asked Arkansans, not you here, because you may have a certain perspective on this, but if you asked Arkansans, what are the two biggest problems facing America right now, what would they say? What's the biggest problem that they would say? Jobs, gas prices. Jobs, gas prices. You disagree? Jobs, gas prices. So in fact, we went and took a picture of the nearest gas station right out here. And check it out. Premium 405. Do you recognize this gas station? It's somewhere. Where is it? It's like right around here. It's right over there. Right? So 405. I'm wondering if I've got my little pointer, but I don't see it. It's okay. So 405 is what you guys are paying for premium, but honestly, in the country, there are places like California where it's well over that. So everybody's worried about gas prices. Now, they're also worried about jobs. And let me just tell you a quick story. Governor Beebe introduced me saying that Michigan was the toughest had the toughest economy. Thank you, Laura. Toughest economy in the nation for this decade, and it really is true. And let me just give you one story. When I was elected in 2002, and I took office in 2003, and some of you may remember in 2003, we were just coming out of another recession, and George Bush was president, and our economists in Michigan were saying, oh, we're on the upside, we're coming out of this recession, we're on the upside of a cycle. And our economy, because we were so reliant on the auto industry, was very cyclical in nature. So when people were buying cars, we were doing great. When they weren't buying cars, we weren't doing great. So our economists were saying, you're coming in at a great time because it's only going to get better. So the end of the first year, and things weren't getting better, and I got a call from the vice president of our Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Maria's here, and she's probably maybe you haven't made this call, but I got this call from the vice president of it. His name is Jim, and he said, Governor, we got a problem. And I said, what? He said, there is a little town in Michigan shaped like a mitten, and a little town right in the middle called Greenville. And in Greenville, they have a refrigerator factory. That refrigerator factory is the largest in the world. Greenville is the size of 8,000 people. So, Mayor, it's a lot smaller than North Little Rock. But they have grown up around this refrigerator factory. In this town of 8,000, 2,700 people work at the refrigerator factory. And you're thinking about senior citizens and children, you know this is a one-company town. And so Jim says to me, Governor, they are about to leave. It's owned by Electrolux. It had gone through a number of owners, but it's a refrigerator factory owned by Electrolux, and they're about to go to Mexico. And I said, why are they going to go? And he said, because they can pay $1.57 an hour. And so I said, well, we will solve this problem. We'll just go to Greenville. We will make them an offer they can't refuse. We will pull out all the tools. And in fact, we went to Greenville. We went to a room about this size where I invited all of the community leaders. The mayor was there, the city manager was there, the head of the union who represented the workers was there, the community college was there, the Chamber of Commerce was there. We sat around the table and we basically emptied out our pockets, put it in the middle of the table, and shoved our pile of incentives across the table to the head of Electrolux. And in the pile of incentives, we put 0 taxes for 20 years. We put that we would help to build them an entirely new factory. The workers put $30 million annually of concessions on the table. The local community put tax abatements, new infrastructure. We put everything we had into our pile of incentives. And the management of Electrolux took our incentives, went out of the room, was gone for 17 minutes, came back in and said, this is such a generous offer. We have never been given this level of incentives before. But there's nothing you can do to compensate for the fact that we can pay $1.57 an hour in Mexico. There's nothing you can do. So, as a state that had so many of these kinds of jobs in it, I'm thinking, wow, what does this mean for the rest of these factories that are all over Michigan? In fact, the month that the last refrigerator came off the assembly line, I was invited to a gathering, and it was a gathering of employees of Electrolux, and it was a picnic, and it was called the Last Supper. And it was the month that the last refrigerator came off the line, but there were thousands of people inside of Clackle's Orchard Pavilion, and I went in, and there's tables after tables of families sitting there with the breadwinners nudging each other and saying, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I don't know. What are you going to do? And as I walked in, and I just wanted to, it was sort of a collective grieving session. And as I walked in, the first guy who comes up to me comes up with his 2 daughters, and he says to me, Governor, These are my two daughters. He had tattoos, and he had his ponytail with his baseball cap on, and he said, I'm 48 years old. He said, I've worked in this factory for 30 years. My father worked here. My grandfather worked here. I went from high school to factory. And then he puts his hand on his chest and he says, the only thing I know is how to make refrigerators. Who is ever going to hire me? Who is ever going to hire me? That question has been asked by workers of that generation all across America this decade. We've lost 42,000 factories in America since the year 2000. There's been a hollowing out of our manufacturing infrastructure in this country. And so when we heard that, we said, oh my God, we've got to do something. We've got to keep advanced manufacturing here. What are we going to do as a nation about these problems? So we have done great things before. In fact, this is the picture of Electrolux, the factory being imploded. And that's a guy on the last day walking out of the factory. As a nation, we're bigger than this, I think, and I think we can solve problems. In fact, over the course of history, we have solved enormous number of problems. When we wanted to go west as a nation, we laid down tracks across this vast country and had the Transcontinental Railroad. When we decided that we wanted more mobility and the auto industry came into being, we created this national highway system as a nation. When we decided that it wasn't enough just to be on the ground driving our own car, but we wanted to go up in the air. In between World War I and World War II, the technology associated with the Department of Defense allowed for the birth of the commercial aviation industry. When we decided it wasn't enough just to go over the earth horizontally, but we wanted to go up vertically and have, in fact, a trip to the moon. John F. Kennedy said, we're going to do this not because it's hard. We're not going to do this because it's easy, but because it's hard. And the technology associated with that particular project allowed for the birth of another great turning point in American history, which was, of course, the advent of the internet. It was the avionics and the telecommunication and the computers associated with the movement to the moon that allowed for the birth of the internet. This all involved the United States and federal policy because we thought that it was a critical national need to respond to a problem. And today, what are we going to do about the problem that besets us that we're just talking about? Jobs and energy security, or how the heck do we bring down the gas prices? And the way we are going to respond to that, of course, is by shouldering this responsibility as a nation. But let me just set this up, because the problem is bigger than just jobs and gas prices. So we have a world population which was 6.1 billion in the year 2000 and is going to be 8.9 billion in 2050, a 47% increase in global population. And what does that mean? That means the demand for energy is going to go through the roof, because in developing nations where much of the population growth will occur, their economic growth is going to go through the roof as well. Between 2007 and 2035, it's projected that there will be a 49% growth in the demand for global energy. And of course, energy consumption in the United States is large when you compare it to other countries. We are the biggest energy consumer. We consume 21% of the world's energy. And see this right here, this 37%? This is our oil problem. 37% of our energy consumption is petroleum. What are we going to do when we are the biggest producer and when the world is going to be sucking up a lot of energy? There's nothing more threatening to our economic prospects than higher oil prices, according to Mark Zandi, who's the chief economist at Moody's. In fact, as Governor Beebe was suggesting, political unrest and the 100+ per barrel oil, $4 a gallon at the pump, we are sending out $1 billion a day to countries who are enemies to us in many cases, or certainly may not be friendly. And every time you see one of these external events outside of the United States, events over which we have no control, you see this external event, you see gas prices spike, and you see many times a recession in the United States that follows. They are inextricably linked. Oil prices and the instability of oil is linked to recessions in the United States. And $1 billion a day being sent overseas means that we are missing out on the opportunity for using that $1 billion to create jobs inside of America. So here's the opportunity. So clean energy is, as you can, just that popped off really fast, but by 2020, $2.3 trillion in investments as an opportunity in clean energy. And by 2030, there will be 1 in 4 jobs that are related to the clean energy industry, 37 million jobs total by 2030. 37 million jobs in clean energy. The question is, where will they be? Where are those jobs going to be located? That's globally. There will be 37 million jobs. And the question is, who's going to be able to get those jobs? Right? Right. So, for us, check this out, because this is truly, as I was saying to a group today, as John Doerr, the venture capitalist, has said, this clean energy market is the mother of all markets. And when I say that, look at this. In 2004, globally, $52 billion of private sector investment was made in the G20 countries in clean energy. That's in 2004. Look at this trajectory of private sector investment in clean energy. In 2010, $243 billion. This is a 630% growth trajectory. And it's only going to get more because other countries are serious about this market. So for us, what does this mean? Because where are those $243 billion worth of dollars going? Well, we've got a lot of competition out there because other countries see this and they are jumping all over it. So for us, for example, if you look in 2010, can you see what this is all about? Oh, golly, wait a second. I got to go back for 1 sec. You know what? I might have blown something. Can you go back to that slide, do you think? In 2010, okay, go back. In 2010, the top country that had investments in renewable energy and clean technology was what? China. The #1 country in 2010. The #2 country was what? You recognize that? I know you do. You can't say anything. That flag there is the German flag. The #2 country in the world in getting private sector clean energy investments was Germany. The #3 country was us. 2 years ago, we were standing on the gold winners platform of the Olympics. 1 year ago, we were in the silver position, and this year we're in the bronze, or 2010 we're in the bronze. What's it going to be next year? Why is this? Because other countries are adopting policy to ensure that they get their piece of the clean energy investments. So here's what this looks like. This was research done by the PEW organization. This is how much money China invested last year, 54 billion. Germany invested 41. I would say China and Germany invested. These are private sector investments. They attracted that investment. USA is number 3. I don't know about you, but I'm used to saying we are number 1, not we are number 3. We have a huge opportunity and a huge problem without acting. Now, it's not just China, it's not just Germany, but other countries in the G20 are also acting. So this is one example that's near and dear to my heart. South Korea, $12 billion they are. Golly, I just did that again. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I'm pressing, but it's a bad button, very bad. Yeah, I thought I was. Anyway, South Korea is decided that it's going to really invest in electric vehicles. And so what that slide is that you're seeing is the lithium-ion car batteries right there. This is, if you had your cell phone, of course your cell phone is powered by a lithium-ion battery. It's just a lot smaller than what appears in the vehicle. Well, the Koreans are not taking this sitting down. They are investing in the jobs that go into car batteries. For us, well, actually, I'll get to that in a second. Germany, as an example, that $41 billion that they attracted, 300,000 jobs it means for them, and their renewable energy sector is larger than their automotive sector now because they took it seriously and they're taking advantage of policy to make it happen. China, this is a very interesting trajectory right here because in 2005, China attracted 2.5 billion, and of course now they're up to 54 billion, which is the amount of money that the entire world spent on clean energy in 2004. So their current investment equates to the entire world's investment, not their investment, but the investment that they have attracted. So they're taking it seriously, and Hu Jintao, who's the head of China, of course the president of China, was asked by President Bush, what keeps you up at night, Mr. President? And President Bush was thinking that Hu Jintao would say terrorism or something like that, but Hu Jintao said that what keeps me up at night is creating 25 million jobs a year for my people. This is why Hu Jintao and China have identified the clean sector economy as a way to create those jobs for the Chinese citizens. The Chinese are also investing in electric vehicles. They're going to be investing $17 billion in the electric vehicle by 2020. And in fact, this is an example of China's prowess, is that now they make half of the world's wind turbines and solar panels. Why? Because they adopted policy that made a good business case for those businesses to locate there, and they made a commitment themselves to renewable energy. They have a goal of getting 20% of their renewable energy from renewable sources by 2020. And that's why all of these manufacturers have decided to go there. And for those who think that it's all about wages, just look, Germany's in the #2 spot, and their wages are equivalent to those of the United States. So it's not all about wages. It is about policy, and that's the difference. In China, this is just one quick story. Evergreen Solar was a Massachusetts company that moved its 800 employees to China, and here's what the head of the Massachusetts Energy Office said as they tried desperately to keep Evergreen Solar in Massachusetts. What they said is that the federal government has brought a knife to a gunfight. Its support is completely out of proportion to the support displayed by China and even to that of Europe. Our government is bringing a knife to a gunfight. So we have got to get a sense of urgency about it. I'm really warm. Are you guys? Is it just me? Is it one of those moments? Let me just follow up on Greenville. So I started to tell you about this Greenville story, and so as we decided what we were going to do, we said we have got to focus on, and I didn't say we, the experts came in and said, Governor, if you're ever going to get jobs, you should look at the clean energy sector because it's going through the roof, and Michigan is well positioned to be able to get some of those jobs. So what we did was we took their advice and we adopted a series of incentives in Michigan, similar to what some of you, which you've done here in Arkansas. But one of the things we did for Greenville is we went and attracted 2 solar panel factories to help to begin to replace the factories that were, the factory that was lost. The 2 solar factories employ about 800 employees, so we're not there in terms of full replacement. But those 2 new solar factories are with a company called Unisolar. And Unisolar has plans to put a couple more in. But here's the problem, is that they are saying to us, unless the federal government creates a demand in the United States, those 2 other factories are going to go overseas. We are being lured right now by India and China, and in fact, the 2 that are there that came in to replace, and we had the community college retrain the workers from Electrolux to go work in the factory, but unless you get a federal policy, those may not even stay. The moment is urgent. And Greenville, bless their hearts, they're like the little engine that could. They decided that they wanted to be in Michigan, the first city in the state to go off of the electric grid, to have all of their municipal buildings and school buildings powered by the solar panels that their residents made. And in fact, they want to change their name from Greenville to Greenerville. They do. In fact, they were joking about whether they should do it Greenestville. They were really debating it. Bless their hearts. And all I want to do is to give them a chance. But the states don't have the tools to do it alone. Arkansas does not have the tools to compete with China. Michigan doesn't either. But the federal government, you bet, we can see something happening. And here's what happens when the federal government gets involved. Let me show you an example from Michigan, because policy does matter. So in Michigan, we did the tax credits for solar, wind, biomass, and batteries. And the federal government also stepped up and said that we believe it's important that we build an electric vehicle in the United States and that we have the guts for that electric vehicle, the lithium-ion battery, done here, so that we're not substituting our reliance on foreign oil with a reliance on foreign batteries. We want to have American-made energy independence in in the vehicles that we make. So as a result of what the federal government did, we pancaked state incentives on top of the Federal Recovery Act, and we got 17 battery companies to come to Michigan, and our incentives caused 258 clean energy businesses to come to Michigan. 45 we recruited from outside of the state, and then we got all of the suppliers to the auto industry who were desperate for work to retool and diversify into wind and solar. Policy matters. Without that, none of that would have happened. And this is 89,000 jobs in the clean energy realm that are projected to be created in Michigan over the next decade. Policy matters. So I really, really, really feel a sense of urgency about it, and I hope you do too. What I really think is important, though, in order to ask for people to be able to go and make this case, a lot of times people don't even know what a clean energy job is. I know you all do, that it's jobs that are, you know, as I say, all kinds of jobs for all kinds of people, whether they're plumbers or scientists or machinists or engineers or bankers or factory workers or marketing consultants, you name it, but the average income is $21,000 to $111,000. These are good paying jobs, and because they are so diverse, the opportunity for the United States to use this as a very robust economic sector is indeed extremely real. As we were talking about earlier, this is just a very diverse opportunity economically for people. The car batteries, let me just show you this. This is my wonk moment, okay? You ready? So I'm a big car geek, and I was so excited that we would be able to go out and recruit these battery companies to make the next vehicle in Michigan. So this is the deal, and there's a reason why I'm showing you this. Batteries have got cells, they've got modules, and they've got the battery pack. The battery pack, this pack here, is about the length of your car. It's just this huge battery pack. But inside of these cells, these battery cells, are an anode, a cathode, separator, electrolyte. There are companies that make each component of that. The supply entire network, the ecosystem around the lithium-ion battery is enormous. The possibilities for America, and you know what? These batteries that go into your car, they're going to be the same batteries that store your renewable energy at some point. These batteries have a longer life than your car. They're maybe 70, 60% used up when you're done with your car. So you use it to store the renewable energy that you may be generating on your rooftops or with the small wind system that you have. The possibility here for an industry is so enormous in the United States. And in Michigan, as a result of policy, again, that meant in the battery sector, 63,000 jobs and $5.8 billion worth of investment in a year and a half. Just 1.5 years. So I signed into law in 2008 a renewable energy standard in Michigan. It's just very modest, 10% of our energy from renewable sources by the year 2015. And we added on a little bit of sauce, a little bit of tax incentives, and the federal government came and said, we're serious about this. We have a critical national need, and we are going to get these jobs in the United States. And for one state, this is what happened, 63,000 jobs. I'm just saying that policy matters. How many are there any students here who are from, so you guys are public servants and persuasive souls, so they're all going to be evangelists, but if you are interested in policy, the fact that the federal government weighs in on something makes a huge difference for the United States. So this guy is Frank Duff, who's an engineer, who's one of our, one of the great people who got jobs. I was just at, you guys, come here for 1 second. Mark. So here, speak loudly into the microphone. No, come here for 1 sec. Do we have a mic? Is there another mic? Something? Or maybe you can just talk loud because it's not too big. So I was just at L&M this afternoon touring L&M Wind Power, right?
Yes.
And how many people have you got working there right now?
A little over 300.
Okay, tell them the range of employees in terms of the types of people that you're hiring. Are they all from Arkansas?
Yes. Yes, almost 100%.
Almost 100%. And they're people who were unemployed, people who were employed. Give them a range of skills, like just to give people a sense of what the opportunity is.
Production workers, machinists, maintenance, health and safety, everything.
Management too, right?
Management too.
The gamut of people who are working here in Arkansas, because you guys adopted policy that caused you all to choose Michigan, right?
Or Arkansas.
I mean, oh, sorry. I'm on autopilot, I know. But that was a good catch. See, I was trying to convince them to also locate in Michigan today, so I thought I could get them on the record. But anyway, but for Arkansans, it's not just about those who work inside the factory, it's also about those who supply you, right?
Yes.
And so how many suppliers do you guys have from this area who are also benefiting from your presence?
We've got over 400 suppliers.
Okay. Give him a round of applause, 400 people. 400 people work, 400 businesses who, right? I mean, that's awesome. All that indirect jobs that's created by this one company. And I bet there are more examples than that. But I'm moving. So I want you to fight back with me, because we have got to have this sense of urgency and impatience, because it's all about not just those in this room, but those who are not privileged enough to be here, Americans across this country. There are 4 solutions that I'm going to ask you to help out on. And these 4 solutions are pragmatic solutions that PEW has done deep dive research, knowing that we can get bipartisan support in Congress, in this Congress, 4. Here are the 4. I'm going to give you some data about them in just a second, but they will create 3 million jobs. First is more electric and fuel-efficient cars. Broad support. The goal is, by 2025, to have you be able to buy an internal combustion engine, a regular car that gets 60 miles to the gallon, up to 60 miles to the gallon, or that 25% of the new cars sold would be electric, plug-in electric or hybrid electric. That's one goal. It's one policy. The second policy is that we get a national renewable energy standard or clean energy standard. PEW is advocating for a 20% standard by the year 2025. Should be doable. It's not unreasonable. Other states have it, but not all the states have it. And that's the problem, is that if you go state by state, the patchwork quilt of America means that you don't have a national market. And businesses are trying to figure out where to locate. And if they can go to China and have access to that market with a clear national commitment, why wouldn't they go there and then export to the United States rather than build here with Americans and American jobs? So we need a national policy. So, and that 20% by 2025 is one. The president has called for 80% in a clean energy standard, which is broader. That would be great too. Broader in terms of its definition. It means it includes nuclear, it includes natural gas, et cetera. Whichever way we go, it will send a signal to the business community that America is serious about creating a market for them, and that's what's critical. Third policy is making the industrial sector more efficient. And by this, I mean that is there anybody here who's affiliated with a plant or factory that has combined heat and power? Is there anybody here? Okay. Do any of you know what CHP is? You know. See, everybody in here knows? Do I have to explain it? I'm going to explain it for those students in the back. All right, because I would need it to be explained to me too. So here's the deal. We've got all these factories all over America, right? And they often have power themselves by having maybe a small plant that's associated with them, or they may be buying power from the energy company, but running it through the plant at a very inefficient way. And so you may lose maybe 70% of the heat that you use in your plant. 70%. Hugely inefficient. 70% of the power gone because it dissipates, because you have a system that's not closed. What if you could capture that waste heat and then use it to power the plant? In fact, in America, in all of the industrial facilities in this country, there is so much waste heat being lost and dissipated that in 1 year, the waste heat in America could power the entire nation of Japan. Can you imagine if we could capture that? That's why energy efficiency is known as the fifth fuel, because it is such an important way that we can become more energy secure. PEW's goal is to double the number of plants that have the equipment on it to make, it's called combined heat and power or cogeneration. Double the number of plants that have the ability to be energy efficient. And then the fourth policy is increasing investments in research and development. Now we know that in this environment, with the current Congress, it's not likely to get a significant increase in research and development. But the goal is that by 2015, we have a $15 billion national commitment in research and development in the clean energy sector. Right now, it's only 3.8. And we have to commercialize a lot of this breakthrough technology. That's why they want to see that. Now, so here's the deal. This is what's really important. We asked Americans, would you favor or oppose an energy proposal that would increase energy efficiency and increase the use of alternative and renewable sources? Would you favor or oppose such a policy on the federal level? And here is what Americans said. 84% said they would favor a national policy that promoted energy efficiency and renewable energy. 84%. You might ask, how does that break down? Well, let me show you. Republicans, 75% of them favor a national policy that promotes renewable energy and energy efficiency. Democrats, 93%. Independents, 82%. The Tea Party even supports it. 63% of Tea Partiers say that we should have a national policy that promotes energy efficiency and renewable energy. I mean, come on, right? We have consensus, America. So what's it going to take? to get it through Congress, because we need a congressional call to action. And this is why I'm asking for your help. Here we are at the Clinton School of Public Service. And the greatest thing that you can do as a citizen is to be a servant of your fellow citizens by asking members of Congress, by being an example. And I say this as governor. When we used to get one letter, we knew it represented 25. That was the breakdown. One call represents 30 other constituents who believe that same. If you know one of these members of Congress who represent you here in Arkansas, for them to hear from you directly, to go to a place where they're holding office hours or coffees or teas and say to them, we're losing every single day. Business owners are making decisions about where to locate, and America is losing. And by the way, you're covered because even the Tea Party supports it. So we just need to tell people that it's okay. Every single president since JFK has called for a national commitment to renewable energy. Every single one. And here we are again. So can events conspire this time to be a moment where we actually get some action? Say yes, say yes, work with me on it. Can you imagine if Arkansas, as Governor Beebe said, Arkansas ends up being the hub of wind energy, not just the energy, but the manufacturing of wind turbines. You are the hub for the whole nation because there's a national policy outside of Little Rock. There are all sorts of barges moving with these huge blades, and your fellow citizens who are making them, the turbines and the nacelles and the towers are being made right here because you're so centrally located. You could have this, but we need Congress to act. Without action, this will all be going somewhere else where there is action. So, my friends, we can either bring a knife to a gunfight, or my favorite metaphor is that we can either be at the table feasting, or we can be on the table. And I am not going to be on the table. I hope that you will join me in calling, in stepping up and calling Congress to act, because it's not just about the president, it is about your fellow citizens, the folks who work near you and the folks and your children and who could be working in this realm to change the world. So I want to thank you for coming out tonight, but before I stop, I want to give the last word to somebody who chose to come to Arkansas, somebody who chose to hire Arkansans, somebody who chose this state because of the things that you have done. And I wonder if Ralph Sigris could join me for one moment, or maybe do you want to get on the podium? You can do wherever you are. Okay. An international player, he's the CEO of Nordex, which of course is a wind, is it a blade, nacelle?
No, nacelle or turbine manufacturer.
Turbine manufacturer.
Blades come from there, here from Little Rock. We are in Jonesboro, so we cover the Northeast, but we are not the only ones. We also have Mitsubishi on the Northwest, which is now moving in. Also one of the older players. We are in business now 26 years. Here, we just sit next to each other. That's the transmission system, which we also need. And within the 2.5 years that we are now here, I came as number one, so to say, to open the office and then to start from scratch, what LM did a little bit before us. Now we are 200 people across the United States, and that does include the production workers in Jonesboro, almost 100. It includes the staff that we have in Chicago. It includes the technicians across the country where the wind farms are. Commissioners. My background is very untypical for this industry. From my background, I'm a lawyer, but I think we also mentioned that in terms of job quality, we need lawyers because the business is so complex. That's a wonderful learning field, but also to demonstrate why it creates good jobs and sometimes more complex than oil and gas. I truly believe that the environmental Arguments are very important, but when you talk to the people on the ground, when you even have the landowners that receive land royalties, you create a tax base for the community where the wind farms are operating. There are so many reasons which just from an economic perspective should convince everyone, should convince the utilities. I think that's also one important point, that we bring the constituents in the market on board, which here in Arkansas would include Entergy Arkansas and the other utilities. It's also something, of course, for the Public Service Commission. When we talk about the true price, I think you can really leave apart, when you look into the details, all things like cap and trade and climate change, but you can go back to what Governor Beebe promoted initially. They are pure economic facts. It's just that today what we have to offer is a competitive price compared to conventional coal. It's a little bit more expensive than gas, but unfortunately the gas price goes up and down. It was three times higher in 2005 than it is today. Within every year, it goes about plus minus 50% up and down. So that this tells you that when you have this one-time investment in renewable energy, you know what the cost will be for the next 30 years. You won't know that when you invest in fossil fuel. And when today you make the choice and say, let's just continue the way we have been doing that with our utilities, then you will not have that investment opportunity again. And at the end, renewable energy, because it's labor intensive and because it's a decentralized approach, creates more jobs than the conventional energy sector.
Now talk for a second about what's happened to the price of wind, for example, over the past 3 years. It's dropped, right?
In the last 24 months, the turbine prices, from our perspective, unfortunately, but certainly from a market perspective, that's excellent, have gone down by approximately 25%. We are currently also now dealing with the pressure that steel between November and now has gone up again by 50%. So, of course, there is a movement in both directions, but I think wind power and many other of the renewable alternatives is today as cheap as it never was, and this from not everywhere. It depends, of course, how much resource you have, how much sun the sun is shining, how much the wind is blowing. So you have to differentiate a little bit. This is why transmission is so helpful, because with transmission investment, you can go to those spots in the country where you really have the wind resource and then bring the cheapest power to the spots where it's consummated.
So tell them why you picked Arkansas. I was going to say Michigan, but...
We certainly looked at all those spots, including Michigan. So in Michigan, we have a project which we are developing, but Arkansas, because it's centrally located, it's close to the southern region in Texas, where the wind is excellent. It's close to the Midwest and the Great Plains, where the wind is wonderful. Unfortunately, no transmission. But that will come, I'm convinced. And also to the East Coast. And eventually, of course, the West Coast has also its spots. But it's location, 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 like you know that probably from brokerage and residential views. That's one thing, and many other things was just the great support that we found here, the skill set of the people, the workers, because to mention a little bit about pay, Jonesboro, we found out the average pay in manufacturing is about $12 to $15 an hour, and our pay range is about 18 to 22. Not just because we want to pay so much, but because the skill set that we need highly trained industrial electricians, that we need mechanical clerks, hydraulic people, the commissioners, which are very sophisticated in what they are doing, that just justifies a higher pay and requires a higher pay in order to get those skills on board. And our employees, like you said, are also mainly Arkansans, including production engineers, manufacturing engineers. So that covers the whole range. I may just conclude with one quote I found a few days ago, which I think fits very well to that discussion. Winston Churchill, who even had an American mother, once said, the United States will always do the right thing after they have exhausted all other possibilities.
But I don't want to wait till all of the other possibilities are exhausted, right? Because we can't wait every single day. Let me take some questions or comments and answers. Yes?
Yeah, could you address the fifth energy source of efficiency and how, as a decentralized economic engine, it doesn't fit our typical model of, of a plant and a centralized job creator. Could you talk a little bit about how the efficiency, and especially in retrofits and energy efficiencies in homes could create huge jobs across the country.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably seen it, and I know you've got some experience with it, but clearly the ability to, for example, retrofit homes with not just, siding that happens to be more, stronger, but LED, where are you guys? The LED light guys who are manufacturing, right? And it's all the products that go into more more efficient homes are the possibilities for them to be manufactured here are huge. The efficiency component of things has to be done in partnership with the Public Service Commission in Michigan, and I know you guys have got a slightly different system. In Michigan, we provided an incentive for our energy companies, like you have done, to move into more efficiency by decoupling the energy use from the money that they were being paid. So in a traditional environment, the more energy you use, the more the electricity company gets paid. In the new environment that we created in Michigan, the less energy that you use, the more they get paid. So the compensation and the incentives are reversed so that you end up saving, they end up getting compensated for it. It's a different business model than what we have come to know in the past, but it's the way we have to go if we are really to be serious about creating job opportunities in this efficiency space as well as becoming less reliant on fossil fuels. Yes, sir. Thank you, Bob.
I own land in the Fayetteville Shale and have my mineral rights lease. Since you're from Michigan, I feel this would be a very apropos question. What would it take for the automobile manufacturers there to be able to convert vehicles that could run on natural gas, that could cause more wells to be drilled here, right, and of course environmentally safely too? Yeah,
the vehicles, they make natural gas vehicles now. They're just used in other countries that have the infrastructure to support it. So the question is, as Boone Pickens has been pushing, can we go to fleet vehicles first to allow for natural gas, compressed natural gas, to be a component? I think we should. We should absolutely be pushing in that direction. And when you consider that if you have, for example, if you buy a General Motors Volt, which has a battery, and you use up the battery first, and then it has a small internal combustion engine that you could fill with, potentially natural gas or biofuels in some way, some clean energy source. You would be running entirely on clean energy. When you plug in if you drive into your garage and plug in your Volt overnight and it goes, 40, 50 miles on a charge, that first 40, 50 miles, you know what you're spending per mile? You're spending 2.5 cents a mile. Do you know what you spend right now with your gas? You probably don't know, but it's about 12 cents a mile. So it's less than a quarter what you would pay to fill up at the pump. And if that electricity is fueled by natural gas as well, then you could have a purely clean experience and be very inexpensive. And by the way, we would be independent of foreign oil. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Yes, ma'am.
I just thought I'd follow up on the natural gas and pick on Mayor Hayes to tell us what he's doing in North Little Rock with natural gas vehicles.
He doesn't even need a mic. Listen to him.
In about a month, we will open the first CNG station in Arkansas that's going to be available for the general public. It'll be off our 15th Street or Curtis Sykes exit. I tried to get Central Arkansas Transit to buy 7 or 8 buses with the ARA funding, and we weren't successful, but we decided that we wanted to move forward. We've got 4 or 5 vehicles, 2 refuge and 3 of our sanitation vehicles that were converted to natural gas, and roughly half to a third of the cost that we're going to save, and obviously it does fluctuate, but it's roughly 50% less, 50 to 70% less than what the cost of diesel or petroleum products, gasoline, would do. And it's going to be available to the general public. And we're talking different fleets around, school, public school fleets, and it's totally an American product, and it'll save that $1 billion a day from going offshore.
$1 billion a day!
Arkansas. So it's 1 month. So 1 month it'll be open in North Little Rock.
Other comments, questions?
Let me just add, real quickly, we want to thank the Department of Agriculture of the state of Arkansas. With $750,000 it cost, $300,000 came from the Department of Agriculture state with some funding, and then each of the two drilling companies, Chesapeake and Southwestern Energy, each contributed $100,000 with $500,000, and then the city of North Little Rock put in about $250,000 to make them $750,000 to open.
That's great. Totally great.
Says it's on.
There you go.
I wanted to ask you if you could talk a little bit more about the combined heat and power cogeneration and what, if anything in particular, you did in Michigan to encourage that and with what success.
We didn't focus on combined heat and power, candidly, in Michigan. This is something that is going to be a national push. And right now, for everybody who may not be aware of it, the combined heat and power incentives nationally are feeble. It's a 10% tax credit that you can put on if you are a facility, a small facility. So what the hope is that we would make those tax credits permanent, make them to 30%, and make them available for larger facilities so that you really do get the incentive for installation of the equipment. Any other? Yes?
I've been studying the shale gas issue in Arkansas for years, and I would argue this is not clean energy. This is not renewable energy. The data and the studies that are coming out show that the carbon footprint of unconventional gas is 20% greater than coal. It is a fossil fuel. It is limited. It does not move us into a clean and renewable energy future for future generations. And I'm waiting for our state leaders to step up to the plate and do comprehensive environmental impact studies on this gas, on the emissions, on the water uses and the water pollutions that are occurring. We need to do our homework before we go and tout our horn about this being clean, renewable energy, because that is not true.
I don't know if there's anybody here who wants to respond to that from the state's perspective. Let me just say that the PEW organization, we have not chosen to pick a fight on natural gas or nuclear. Our hope is to get a renewable energy, because it's not renewable, but our hope is to get a renewable energy standard that is 20% by 2025. But we recognize that there will be others who want to broaden that definition. And our whole push is we need a market signal. And if it's a clean energy standard that includes natural gas or nuclear or others, that's okay. But our push is to make sure that we really expand the renewable pie. But again, I fully understand that many believe that natural gas is a bridge to getting to a fully renewable future. Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. Totally get where you're coming from. Any other comments or yes, ma'am? Yes. You're a Youper.
I'm a Youper.
That's what I'm talking about. Where are you from in the UP?
Newberry.
You are.
Another one.
You are a Youper also?
From the Keweenaw.
I knew, from the Keweenaw? I knew I liked these guys. I saw them there. I felt like there was a connection. That is excellent. Great to see you. Yes, sir.
Governor, you touched on it. The power of communicating with your legislators, because it seems like sometimes a lot of proponents of renewable energy just think they should just realize it's the right thing to do, but fail to really communicate like many others out there
Yeah.
on issues they care about.
I cannot underscore this enough. If they don't hear from you, it just ain't going to happen, because they will assume that nobody's making noise about it. They just won't. And so it is so critical for you to be a player in democracy and to reach out to somebody who you have hired to work for you. Now, whether you voted for that person or not, you've hired them. They respond to you. They ought to respond to you. They work for you. Please let them hear how you feel. Because a lot of times when they get inside the vortex inside of DC, they talk to one another and they solidify their hardcore positions, on the right or the left, and they end up being out of touch. Help your representative not to be out of touch. It's a favor you would be doing to him and to the citizens, that you need to express to them that people care about jobs and they care about gas prices and energy security. That's what Arkansans care about. That's what Americans care about. They don't care about this birther junk. They don't care about this stuff that often, they're talking about inside the Beltway in Washington, and they're not going to do it unless they hear from you. I just say that as an elected official. Every single morning I would have an 8 o'clock meeting, and our constituent services director would be at the meeting and report out. Here's what we're getting calls on. Here's a letter from somebody you should read. I had office hours every single month, and I invited the world to come. They had 5 minutes each. And if I wasn't hearing from people, I would be completely out of touch. Even if your representative on the federal level doesn't have office hours, you as a citizen of the world and the planet have a responsibility to make this happen. We're here in the Clinton School. I hope that you can fulfill the ethos of this school by taking action. It's been a privilege to be here tonight. Thank you all so very much for coming.